The Galactic Council had once laughed when the issue came up. Humans, a primitive race from the edge of the Orion Arm, were just starting to make noise in the cosmos. They had learned space travel a few decades earlier, stumbled into wormhole tech by accident, and had started sending explorers everywhere. Loud, reckless, stubborn, that was how the Council saw them. Not dangerous. Not worth worrying about. So when the debate opened on Earth's future, almost every voice was the same. Enslave them. It was standard policy for species that advanced too quickly without proper authorization. Put them in controlled labor worlds, strip them of their technology, harvest their strengths. Humanity, they believed, would fit neatly into the system like all the others before them. The vote was almost unanimous. 87 council species, all noble, ancient, and proud, clicked their voting stones in favor of subjugation. Only 2 spoke against it, minor species who barely had a say. Their warnings were brushed aside. "The humans are unruly," they said. "Too violent. Too unpredictable." Laughter echoed in the golden halls of the council. No one feared Earth. The fleets left a week later. Black ships darkened the skies over New York, Shanghai, Cairo, London. The people of Earth didn't surrender. They didn't even hesitate. A handful of hours after the first city was fired upon, humanity had responded. First came the missiles, old-fashioned and blunt. Then came the viral attacks, software bombs tearing through the invaders' systems like wildfire. Finally came something no one expected: humanity itself. They had learned more from the stars than anyone thought. Bioengineering, cybernetics, dark matter weaponry. Even before the Council had noticed them, Earth had been building, preparing, fighting among themselves, sure, but always growing sharper, meaner, smarter. War was humanity's oldest teacher, and they had paid attention. When the first alien dropships landed in Detroit, they were ripped apart in minutes. In Africa, entire platoons of Council soldiers disappeared into the jungles, never to be seen again. Tokyo's defense grid overloaded the attackers' shields with a hacking virus embedded inside a simple children's game. Moscow's winter swallowed armored beasts whole. No matter where they landed, the invaders bled. Weeks passed. Months. The Council began to panic. What should have been an easy conquest turned into a nightmare. Every fleet they sent was shredded. Their best generals disappeared. Their war machines, so mighty in every other corner of the galaxy, failed against human ingenuity and rage. Then the unthinkable happened. Humanity launched their own fleet. It wasn't big. It wasn't pretty. Rusted cargo freighters welded into warships, battleships carved out of Earth's mining rigs, old satellites repurposed into kinetic kill weapons. But they moved fast, hit harder and worse. The humans didn't fight fair. They sabotaged Council fleets from the inside. They hacked navigation systems mid-warp. They planted viruses in diplomatic envoys. No one was safe. Now the Council species started seeing their own worlds burned, their own cities bombed from orbit, their own people enslaved. The Council called an emergency meeting. 1,000 voices buzzing and hissing and growling across 1,000 worlds. They wanted answers. They wanted revenge. Above all, they wanted to understand how everything had gone so horribly wrong. But it was too late. As the Council chambers buzzed in chaos, the great doors thundered open. A single human walked in. No armor, no army behind him, just a worn jacket, heavy boots, and a gaze that cut sharper than any weapon. He dropped something at the Council's feet, a piece of wreckage, still smoldering from a downed flagship. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The human smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. You voted to enslave us, he said, voice low and clear. Now you're the ones on your knees. Nobody dared to move at first. The counselors, proud rulers of 1,000 systems, just sat there frozen in their golden thrones. Some of them hissed under their breath, others reached for translators or weapons hidden in their robes. But none of them stood up. Not after seeing what had happened to their fleets, their worlds, their so-called unstoppable armies. The human stepped forward, his boots echoing on the polished marble floor. His name was Colonel Marcus Hale, though out here they would soon know him by a different title, the Voice of Earth. Not a politician, not a diplomat, a soldier. Because Earth wasn't here to beg or negotiate. Earth was here to deliver judgment. You think you know power, Marcus said, his voice steady, almost casual. You think you can sit in your gilded towers, pass your little votes, and play gods over others. He raised his hand slowly and pointed at the ceiling, where a hologram flickered to life. It showed Earth's fleet, ugly and ragtag, surrounding the Council's most sacred strongholds. Ships locked in orbit around homeworlds that hadn't seen war in 1,000 years. Weapons primed. You thought you could enslave us, Marcus continued, pacing now, forcing the counselors to turn and follow him like scolded children. You saw what you wanted to see. Primitive savages, easy to break. You never thought what would happen if we fought back. If we decided you were the threat. One of the counselors, a lizard-like creature with jeweled scales, finally found his courage. This is a violation of... Marcus shot him a look that froze the words in his throat. Violation. Marcus barked a laugh. You voted to violate an entire planet, an entire people. You wanted slaves, and now you want to talk about rules? He shook his head, disgusted. Number, you don't get to hide behind your laws now. You made your choice. A few of the counselors whispered among themselves, trying to plan, to scheme, the way they always had. But Marcus could see it in their eyes, the fear. Real, naked fear. It was new to them. They weren't used to feeling weak. But humanity had a way of dragging even gods down into the dirt. You're not leaving this room until you understand something, Marcus said. He pulled a small device from his jacket, a crude black cube no bigger than his fist. When he activated it, the walls around them changed. Not just the walls, the floor, the ceiling, everything. The counselors found themselves standing in a field of scorched earth. Around them rose the wreckage of their own ships, burning. Bodies lay scattered, council soldiers, broken and bloodied, their high-tech armor shattered. This is what you created, Marcus said softly. This is your legacy. He stepped closer to the lizard counselor, who had dared to speak. You have two choices. Kneel and surrender every one of your empires to human governance, or keep fighting, and we'll wipe you out, all of you, species by species, planet by planet, until only ghosts are left to whisper about the day you tried to break Earth. Silence. Heavy, crushing silence. Finally, the eldest counselor, a towering being whose body shimmered like molten gold, rose from his throne. Slowly, stiffly, he bent one knee, then the other, and with that the rest followed. Some out of fear, some out of desperation, a few, maybe, out of something close to respect. But they all knelt. Every last one of them. Marcus didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply stared down at them, the proud rulers of the galaxy, now bowing before the very species they once thought to enslave. Remember this moment, Marcus said, because it's the last mercy you'll ever get from us. Above them, the Earth fleet began to broadcast a message to every corner of the galaxy. The age of the Council is over. The age of humanity has begun. The message spread faster than light itself. Every colony, every council world, every backwater trading post received the transmission. Some didn't believe it at first. They thought it was human propaganda, a clever trick. But the pictures that followed, the great council chambers desecrated, their proud leaders on their knees, those couldn't be faked. Across the galaxy, chaos erupted. Old alliances crumbled overnight. Trade networks collapsed. Slave markets burned. Species who had once bowed to council law found themselves free, but terrified. Without the council, who would protect them? Who would rule them? The answer came 3 days later, when the first Earth fleet arrived at the council's capital world, Virex Prime. Marcus Hale led them himself, standing at the helm of a battered human warship named Deliverance. It was barely spaceworthy by council standards, a rusted beast of welded steel, yet it carved a path through the void like a predator scenting blood. Marcus didn't bring peace. He brought a new order. The humans disarmed the planetary security forces first. Then they landed ground teams, soldiers, engineers, scientists, and began dismantling the Council's old systems. The golden statues of Council heroes were pulled down. The Hall of Species, a museum celebrating the Council's civilized rule, was converted into a prison. Every councillor who had voted for Earth's enslavement was marched through the streets in chains. The footage went viral. Billions cheered. Billions wept. Billions seethed. Not everyone loved their new human rulers. Some tried to resist. On Doral 6, an aristocratic rebellion rose up, funded by old council families. They thought the humans would hesitate, that they'd negotiate, that they'd respect the so-called nobility of the galaxy. They were wrong. Marcus deployed a single unit of Earth's shock marines, men and women who had cut their teeth in the worst wars Earth had ever known. They didn't ask questions. They didn't take prisoners. Within 72 hours, Doral 6 was nothing but smoking ruins. Every rebel leader was executed. Every city that resisted was flattened. Those who surrendered were spared. Barely. The message was clear. You either submit or you burn. Marcus stood atop the ruins of Doral's capital, looking out over the devastation with cold eyes. He didn't feel joy. He didn't feel sorrow. He felt necessity. Earth had been given one chance to rise, and he wasn't about to let it slip through his fingers. We can't afford weakness, he told his second-in-command, Captain Reza Malik. Not now. Not ever. Malik nodded grimly. They're scared of us. That's good. They'll think twice before crossing us. Marcus stared at the burning horizon. Fear only lasts so long. We need something stronger. What then? Marcus didn't answer right away. He thought about the Council's centuries of rule, about the lies they told to keep themselves in power, about the wars they started just to thin out populations, about the billions they had enslaved, tortured, erased without a second thought. No, humanity wouldn't be that, but they wouldn't be soft either. We build an empire, Marcus said finally. A real one. One where no species can enslave another. One where everyone knows their place. One where humanity leads forever. And so it began. Earth's armies spread across the galaxy like wildfire. They didn't just conquer. They rebuilt. They rewrote laws. They established new governments loyal to humanity. Every planet, every station, every fleet had a human overseer. Resistance was crushed ruthlessly. Cooperation was rewarded with food, medicine, and technology that most species had never dreamed of having access to. It wasn't kindness, it was control. Soon, human children learned about new star systems the way they once learned about continents. Human flags flew on alien worlds. Human words became the language of trade, law, and diplomacy. The old council maps, once covered in colorful patches of alien empires, turned gray, the color of Earth's new dominion. But deep in the shadows of forgotten systems, old grudges festered. Seeds of rebellion took root, and Marcus knew it. He stood once again before the ruins of Virex Prime's great council hall, the banners of Earth snapping in the bitter wind. "We didn't ask for this war," he whispered to himself, "but we're damn sure going to finish it." Above him, the first human-built dreadnoughts, colossal warships the size of cities, drifted into orbit. Earth was no longer a backwater planet. It was the beating heart of a new empire. And it was just getting started. The first signs of rebellion came quietly, whispers in dark alleys, symbols etched into walls, small things, easy to overlook in the grand sweep of conquest. But Marcus Hale didn't overlook them. He knew history too well. He knew that empires didn't fall to armies, they fell to ideas, to the seeds of defiance planted in the hearts of the desperate. On the mining colonies of the outer verge, a shipment of Earth's supplies vanished. No pirates, no storms, just gone. In the core worlds once loyal to the Council, human governors started to report riots. Small at first, quickly suppressed, but growing louder, angrier. There were rumors that some of the conquered Council species were meeting in secret, plotting, waiting for the right moment to strike back. Marcus sat in the war room aboard the flagship Deliverance. Maps and reports spread before him like a surgeon about to cut open a dying patient. Around the table, his generals and advisors waited for orders. "We knew this was coming," said Captain Reza Malik, frowning. "You can't conquer the galaxy without making enemies." Marcus nodded slowly. "It's not the battles that worry me," he said. "It's the belief. They're starting to believe they can beat us." The room fell silent. That was the real danger. Not weapons, not armies. Hope. Admiral Ortega, an older woman with silver hair and a cybernetic eye, leaned forward. "Let's crush it before it grows. We make examples, harsh ones, the old way." Marcus stared at her for a long moment. He remembered the Council's examples, entire cities vaporized for daring to speak out. Whole species erased from history because they dared to hope. Was that what humanity would become now? Just another tyrant with a prettier flag? "We'll be smart about it," Marcus said finally. "Targeted strikes, leaders, not civilians. No mass slaughter unless we have no choice." Some of the generals looked disappointed. They wanted blood. They wanted to stamp out rebellion with fire and steel. But Marcus knew better. Every martyr they made would breed 10 more rebels. Humanity had to rule with an iron hand, yes, but it had to look clean. It had to look righteous. He pointed at the biggest cluster of trouble. The old council world of Jackstar, now under human occupation. Reports showed growing unrest, protests, sabotage, a few small attacks on human patrols. "Start there," Marcus ordered. "Find the leaders, cut them out." The strike teams moved fast. Within days, they uncovered a rebel cell. Students, merchants, even former council guards who had sworn loyalty to Earth, but now plotted behind their human overseers' backs. They had plans, detailed, terrifying plans, to hit human supply lines, ambush governors, even attempt to assassinate Marcus himself when he next visited the sector. Marcus watched the footage grimly. The captured rebels beaten, bloodied, but still defiant. One young Jackstari female, barely out of her teens, stared into the camera as if she could burn a hole through the screen. "You think you've won," she spat, her voice raw. "But every world you take makes us stronger. Every death you cause feeds the fire." Marcus leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. This was what the Council had never understood. You could crush bones, but ideas slipped through the cracks like smoke. "We can't just kill her," Malik said, reading the mood. "She's too public already. She'll be a symbol if we execute her." Marcus nodded. "Then we don't kill her." He ordered a new kind of attack: psychological warfare. They broadcast a message galaxy-wide, a fake confession, carefully edited, showing the young rebel begging for forgiveness, praising humanity's rule, blaming her fellow rebels for violence and suffering. They doctored it so skillfully that even seasoned analysts couldn't spot the cuts. It worked, at first. Some of the unrest cooled. Jackstar went quiet. Other sectors hesitated, unsure what was real anymore. But in the shadows, deeper and darker rebellions began to form. Rebels who knew not to trust the screens. Rebels who learned from their enemies. Rebels who didn't just want to end human rule. They wanted to erase humanity from the stars. Marcus stood on the bridge of the Deliverance as another world flickered into submission below him. He should have felt victorious. He should have felt proud. Instead, he felt something gnawing at the edges of his mind, something cold and inevitable. This wasn't peace. This was just the beginning of a new war. And this time, he wasn't sure Earth would survive it. It started with a whisper. A human governor on the frontier world of Tyran 5 was found dead in his mansion, his body cold and broken, eyes wide in shock. Official reports called it a heart failure. But Marcus knew better. Governors didn't die of heart attacks on fortified worlds, not when they had triple-layered security and round-the-clock surveillance. The real cause surfaced 2 days later. An assassination. Precision work. Clean. Professional. Not the reckless kind of violence that desperate rebels usually managed. No, this was organized, funded, planned. And the worst part? The killers weren't alien, they were human. The report shook Marcus to his core. He sat alone in his quarters aboard the Deliverance, staring at the encrypted file flashing on the tablet before him. Photos of the dead governor, photos of the operatives, all human. Former Earth military, thought to be loyal, now turned traitor. They had called themselves Sons of Terra. Marcus laughed bitterly. Sons of Terra. They weren't fighting for Earth's glory. They were fighting against him. Against the empire he had built with blood and fire. "They think I've betrayed humanity," he muttered to himself. "They think I'm the tyrant." He couldn't deny the thought stung. When he had started this conquest, it wasn't supposed to be about power. It was about survival. About making sure humanity would never be slaves to anyone, ever again. But somewhere along the line, conquest had become the way of life. Every world captured, every rebellion crushed, every alien race brought to heel. It had changed them. It had changed him. The door chimed. Reza Malik entered without waiting for permission. His uniform was rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. "We've captured one," Malik said, throwing a tablet onto Marcus's desk. "One of the sons." Marcus picked it up. A young man stared back at him, early 20s, sharp features, defiant expression. His name was Ethan Voss, a decorated soldier who had fought at the siege of Orion's Belt, and had been one of Marcus's personal recommendations for the first wave of colonial administrators. Betrayed from within. "They're not alone," Malik said grimly. "We think the Sons have spread across half the sectors. Soldiers, engineers, even some governors. They're planning something big, real big." Marcus leaned back, the leather of his chair creaking. "How long?" "Days. Maybe a week before they act. Less if they realize we're onto them." Marcus drummed his fingers on the desk. He couldn't fight a two-front war. Rebels in the outer systems, traitors inside his own ranks. The Empire was already stretched thin. Too much territory and too few loyal men to hold it. If he moved wrong now, everything they had built would collapse. He stood up abruptly. "Get me the High Command," he barked. "Emergency session, now." Within the hour, every admiral, general, and major governor appeared on the hollow channels, their faces grim and flickering in blue light. Marcus didn't waste time. "There's treason inside our empire," he said. "Humans, our own people. They call themselves Sons of Terra. They want to overthrow this government, dismantle everything we've fought for." Murmurs of shock and anger rippled through the council. "They call me a tyrant," Marcus said, his voice cold. "They think we should have stayed small, stayed weak. They think we should have begged the council for mercy instead of crushing them. I won't allow it." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "I am declaring martial law across all human and alien sectors, effective immediately. Anyone suspected of collaborating with the Sons will be detained. Anyone caught aiding them will be executed." Even through the hollow channels, Marcus could feel the unease. Some of his generals shifted in their seats. A few even dared to glance at each other, doubt flickering in their eyes. He crushed it before it could grow. "If you are not with me," he said, his voice rising like a hammer, "you are against Earth, and Earth does not forgive traitors." He ended the call without waiting for questions. Malik approached him cautiously afterward. "Sir, martial law across the entire empire? That's a lot of ground to cover, a lot of people to watch." Marcus stared out the viewport, the stars cold and distant. "Then we better get started. Because if humanity was going to survive the storm that was coming, it wouldn't be through hope. It would be through absolute, unrelenting control." And Marcus Hale was ready to pay the price, no matter how much blood it cost. The rebellion didn't start with explosions. It started with silence. Across dozens of human-controlled worlds, communication lines went dead. Patrols failed to check in. Supply ships vanished without a trace. It was as if someone had pulled the nerves out of the Empire's body, leaving it twitching, blind and deaf. Marcus Hale stood in the command center of deliverance, staring at the blank screens, feeling the walls of his empire cracking under his feet. "They're cutting us off," Malik said, grim-faced beside him. "World by world, they're isolating the core." Marcus nodded, his jaw tight. He wasn't surprised anymore. The Sons of Terra had learned well. They weren't trying to beat him in open battle. They were bleeding him from within, letting the Empire rot until it crumbled under its own weight. "Order all fleet commanders to regroup at Earth," Marcus snapped. "Pull everyone back. We hold the core worlds at any cost." Malik hesitated. "Sir, that leaves the outer colonies undefended." "They're already lost," Marcus said bitterly. "We save what we can." The order went out, but it was already too late in some places. On Jackstar, human garrisons were overwhelmed. Footage streamed in of captured soldiers paraded through the streets, jeered by alien crowds and human rebels alike. On Tyrin 5, the human governor's palace burned, a crude banner waving from the ruins, a black fist clenched over a shattered earth. Even worse was the betrayal from within the fleet itself. Marcus trusted his admirals. He handpicked them, trained them, fought beside them. But trust meant nothing now. Reports flooded in of ships mutinying, turning their guns on loyalist forces, hijacking supplies meant for Earth's defenses. Malik slammed a fist onto the console. How did it get this bad? Marcus didn't answer immediately. He knew exactly how it had gotten this bad. It wasn't just the aliens or the Sons of Terra. It was the dream he had built, a dream of human dominance, of an empire born from vengeance and fear. They had conquered the stars, but they had lost themselves along the way. Fear bred hate, hate bred rebellion, and now rebellion was feeding on everything they had created. A chime sounded, a secure line opening. Only one person had access to that channel. Marcus tapped the console. Admiral Ortega's face appeared, blood running from a cut above her eyebrow, smoke billowing behind her. "Sir," she started, coughing. "The fleet at Rigel's Reach. It's gone. Betrayed from inside. They're coming for Earth. They're moving fast." Marcus leaned in. "How many?" Ortega's face twisted. "Too many." The line cut out with a sharp buzz. Marcus stared at the black screen, his reflection flickering back at him. In that moment, he didn't see a savior of humanity. He didn't see a conqueror. He saw a man standing at the edge of a grave he had dug with his own hands. "We have to prepare for siege," Malik said quietly. "Fortify Earth's orbit. Evacuate non-combatants." Marcus shook his head. "No evacuation. No retreat." "But sir," Marcus turned to him, eyes blazing. "If Earth falls, it's over. The Empire dies with it." Malik swallowed, then saluted. Understood. Across Earth, alarms blared. The cities, glittering monuments of human pride, turned into fortresses overnight. Orbital cannons primed, shield arrays crackled to life. Every man, woman, and child old enough to hold a weapon was drafted into the militia. Marcus addressed them all in a broadcast that lit up every screen on the planet. "This is the final hour," he said. "The traitors come for us, fueled by lies and weakness. They want to tear down everything we have built, everything we have fought for. They want Earth on its knees again." He leaned closer to the camera, his voice dropping to a cold whisper. "We will show them the price of betrayal. We will show them the strength of humanity." He ended the broadcast, the screen fading to black. For a moment, there was a heavy silence across Earth. Then a roar, from the cities to the mountains, from the seas to the skies. A roar of defiance, of fury. Earth would not go quietly. Marcus stood on the balcony of the Central Command Tower, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, the rebel fleet was coming. His enemies, once friends. His people, now divided. The first shots of the final war were about to be fired, and Marcus Hale was ready to meet them with fire and blood. The night sky above Earth lit up long before the rebel ships broke through orbit. From the ground, it looked almost beautiful. Streaks of burning light, flashes of color as debris rained down. But there was nothing beautiful about what was coming. The sons of Terra had gathered every ship, every gun, every piece of stolen technology they could find. Their fleet was a black tide, blotting out the stars. Marcus Hale stood at the heart of Earth's defense network, in the command tower known as Fortress 1. The walls shook as the first orbital strikes hammered the planetary shields. Officers barked orders, screens flashed red warnings, and somewhere far below, sirens howled like the planet itself was screaming. "Shield integrity at 72%, Malik reported, his voice tight. Marcus didn't flinch. "Hold them!" The rebel fleet came in waves. First, the heavy cruisers, pounding the shields with brute force. Then the boarding craft, sleek and fast, slipping past defenses to land troops in the cities. Earth's defenses fought back with everything they had. Railguns the size of skyscrapers, plasma batteries tearing through space, swarms of fighter drones buzzing like angry bees. But it wasn't enough. No matter how many rebel ships they destroyed, more kept coming, like locusts, endless and hungry. Marcus knew this wasn't just about strategy anymore. This was hatred, pure and simple. The Sons didn't just want to defeat Earth. They wanted to wipe it clean. A comms officer turned to Marcus, pale-faced. "They've broken through at Sector 9. Heavy infantry landing in New Chicago." Marcus gritted his teeth. "Send the 8th Legion. Push them back." Another report came in. Enemy troops breaching in Europe, riots in the underground bunkers, civilian panic in Asia. It was everywhere. The empire Marcus had built was bleeding from 1,000 wounds. He grabbed a rifle from a nearby weapons rack, checking the magazine with practiced hands. "Malik," he said, tossing the second-in-command a sidearm, "we're not sitting here while they tear our world apart." Malik grinned despite the chaos. "About time." They moved fast. Dropships took them to the front lines. The ruins of New Chicago, now a battleground of twisted steel and shattered glass. Rebel soldiers moved through the streets in tight squads, their weapons brutal, their armor scavenged from 100 fallen worlds. And leading them were humans, faces Marcus recognized from recruitment files, men and women who had once sworn loyalty to Earth. There was no time for speeches. Marcus waded into the fight without hesitation, rifle barking, every shot a burst of rage. Around him, Earth's defenders fought with savage desperation. Militia units, battered soldiers, even civilians, all throwing themselves at the enemy with a ferocity that made Marcus's chest ache with pride and sorrow at the same time. The battle was chaos. Explosions ripped through buildings. Shrapnel rained from the sky. Marcus fought like a man possessed, leading charge after charge, pushing the rebels back block by block. But he knew it was only a temporary victory. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and Earth's defenses were cracking. Hours blurred together. The sun never rose. The sky stayed black and burning. By the time Marcus stumbled back to Fortress 1, bloodied and exhausted, the news was worse. Malik met him at the gates, his uniform torn, his face grim. "They've breached the southern perimeter," he said. "They're inside the city." Marcus wiped blood from his forehead. "How long do we have?" Malik hesitated. "Hours. Maybe less." Marcus nodded slowly. He had expected this. He had fought to delay it. But in the end, Earth was losing. He climbed the steps to the command balcony one last time, staring out over the ruined city. Fires burned in every direction. The air was thick with smoke and death. In the distance, he could see the rebel banners rising, black fists on shattered globes. He raised the old rifle in his hand and slammed it down on the balcony rail. "We are not done," he growled. His voice, hoarse but defiant, carried across the plaza where the last defenders gathered. "You hear me?" he shouted. "We fight to the last breath, to the last man. We are Earth, and we will never kneel again." A roar answered him, broken, battered but fierce. Marcus knew he would die here. That much was certain. But he would not die silent. He would not die easy. If Earth was going to fall, it would fall in fire, with every last soul screaming defiance into the void. The final battle had begun, and Marcus Hale, the man who had once conquered the stars, would meet it with bloodied fists and a heart full of rage. The last stand wasn't glorious, it wasn't clean, and it wasn't noble. It was a raw, desperate brawl for every block, every street, every crumbling tower that still stood above the burning remains of New Chicago. The defenders of Earth, soldiers, civilians, even wounded children clutching scavenged rifles, fought because they had no other choice. Marcus Hale was in the thick of it. His uniform was torn, the once proud insignia of Earth's empire scorched away by plasma fire. His rifle had long since run dry, and now he fought with a scavenged blade torn from a fallen enemy, each swing fueled by fury and heartbreak. The sons of Terra poured through the breaches like a living wave, their black banners snapping in the smoke-choked wind. They shouted slogans about freedom, about redemption, about saving humanity from itself. Marcus heard none of it. All he heard was the roar of battle and the pounding of his own blood in his ears. Malik fought beside him, bleeding from a dozen wounds but still standing. They didn't speak anymore. Words were useless now. Their bond was the kind forged only in the fire of hopeless wars. A glance, a nod, a shared grimace that meant, "We fight until we fall." Hours dragged on. The line collapsed and reformed a dozen times. Every alley, every ruined square became a killing ground. Human blood mixed with alien blood, with rebel blood, soaking the ground until it turned to black mud. And still, Marcus fought. At some point, he didn't know when, he found himself back at the steps of Fortress 1, the command tower now half destroyed, smoke pouring from its shattered spires. A small knot of defenders, barely 100 souls left, had gathered there for their last defense. Some had homemade bombs strapped to their chests. Others clutched rusted knives or simple steel pipes. They were the last hope of Earth's empire. The rebel forces closed in, surrounding them on all sides. Marcus climbed the broken stairs, dragging his battered body upward until he stood atop the last bastion of the human empire. His voice was ragged, almost gone, but somehow he found enough strength to shout one last order. Hold. And they did. When the rebels charged, they met walls of bullets and blades. They met teeth and fists and blind, furious resistance. Every step they gained cost them dearly. Marcus was a whirlwind at the heart of it, cutting, striking, dodging, refusing to fall. But he knew it was ending. One by one, the defenders fell. Malik went down, shot through the chest as he shielded a teenage boy with a broken rifle. The boy screamed and kept firing. Others fell silently, without drama, swallowed by the endless tide. Marcus fought until his arms wouldn't lift anymore, until his legs buckled, until the blade in his hand snapped in two, and he was left swinging fists at enemies twice his size. A rebel soldier tackled him to the ground. Another booted him in the ribs. He felt bones crack, tasted blood in his mouth. They dragged him up, shoving him to his knees atop the ruined balcony. Around him, Fortress 1 burned. The black banners of the Sons of Terra were already being raised atop the rubble. The rebel commander, a woman Marcus recognized from the files, once a loyal Earth general named Cassian Wren, stepped forward. Her armor was black, her eyes hard. "It's over, Hale," she said. Her voice wasn't cruel, it was tired. "Surrender. Save what's left of your people." Marcus lifted his head, blood dripping from his lips. His body screamed for him to give up, to close his eyes and let the darkness take him. But he didn't. He grinned. It wasn't a smile of victory. It wasn't even a smile of defiance. It was the smile of a man who knew something the rest had forgotten. "You think killing me saves you," Marcus rasped. "You think tearing down Earth's empire makes you free." He coughed, spitting blood at Wren's boots. "But you're wrong. You'll tear each other apart. You'll beg for the order we gave you. And when the stars burn, when your new world falls into chaos, you'll remember us." Cassian's jaw tightened. She raised her weapon. Marcus Hale laughed, a hoarse, broken sound. And when the shot rang out, when the world tilted and darkness rushed up to claim him, he died the way he lived, on his feet, unbroken, with fire still in his heart. The empire of Earth was dead, but its ghost would haunt the galaxy for centuries to come.